Here. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue our study in paper 136, the baptism in the 40 days, and we're on part two, which is the baptism again. And I realize that we've gone over this in the previous paper on John the Baptist, but they go over it again, so they think it's important enough to go over again. So we're going to do that tonight. We're going to start with part two, the baptism of Jesus. Change the screen here so we'll go to the same page. Okay, let's small type here. Okay, here, let me check my streaming service before we get going and make sure we're live. We are live. Okay. Let's see here. Jesus was baptized. Let me see if I can read this a little bit better.
To the baptism of Jesus.
Baptism of Jesus. Find my glasses because this is a little bit on the small side. Here we go. 2. The baptism of Jesus. Jesus was baptized at the very heart of John's preaching.
Height.
Pardon me?
The very height.
That's what, isn't that what I say? Something else?
Heart.
Okay.
It happens to all of us.
Height of John's preaching when Palestine was aflame with the expectancy of his message. The kingdom of God is at hand. When all Jewry was engaged in serious and solemn self-examination, you know, they're saying it's coming to the end of the world right now, over and over and over and over again, don't they? So
they've been doing that all my life.
Yeah, the same principle. The Jewish sense of racial solidarity was very profound. The Jews not only believed that the sins of the father might afflict his children, but they firmly believed that the sin of one individual might curse the nation. Accordingly, not all who submitted to John's baptism regarded themselves as being guilty of the specific sins which John denounced. Many devout souls were baptized by John for the good of Israel. They feared lest some sin of ignorance on their part might delay the coming of the Messiah. They felt themselves to belong to a guilty and sin-cursed nation, just like today. And they presented themselves for baptism that they might be by so doing, manifest fruits of race penitence. It is therefore evident that Jesus in no sense received John's baptism as a rite of repentance or for the remissions of sin. In accepting baptism at the hands of John, Jesus was only following the example of many pious Israelites. So Jesus didn't get baptized because he felt like he was guilty of sin. He also knew that God forgives sin and no sacrifice was necessary for sin. So,
Roger,
yeah.
Before you switch this.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Hang on. Okay.
Yeah, the Jews not only believed that the sins of the father might afflict his children, but they firmly believed that the sin of one individual might curse the nation.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
Christians, it's taught that the sin of Adam caused Jesus to have to come here to be sacrificed, to shed his blood, to cover those sins.
Now, is any of that true?
No.
No.
But this right here pretty well shows it.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. That is not true. It's not true that Adam's sin affected Adam's default, we should say.
The curse.
The curse, yeah. Cursed the whole nation. It did not, right? He just made a mistake. And so he had to repent from that mistake, which they did right afterwards. And they went on to the mansion worlds and served on the Council of 24. So they were forgiven for their default or their sin, if you would. Misdeed, really. And well, I guess you would call it a sin because both of them committed adultery too, right? Anyway you look at it.
It wasn't the father's will, so it was sin.
Yeah, so it was sin. But that kind of thing that's definitely something you could call sin. But what we're talking about here is the fact that the Jews believed that an unknowing sin, in other words, if you did something that was they felt was a sin and you didn't know it, that's part of this baptism for remittance of sin in which you didn't know you committed. So they didn't want to keep the Messiah from coming because of this sin of ignorance,
They
really,
wanted to
right?
purify the nation.
Yeah,
So
everyone, right? And the reason Jesus was baptized, because he felt like it was in accordance with the will of the Father, okay? That he show his brothers and sisters, or his brothers, that he's willing to go through this even himself, okay? All right. Diane, would you take the next one?
When Jesus of Nazareth went down into the Jordan to be baptized, he was a mortal of the realm who had attained the pinnacle of human evolutionary ascension in all matters related to the conquest of mind and to self-identification with the spirit. He stood in the Jordan that day, a perfected mortal of the evolutionary worlds of time and space. Perfect synchronity and full communication had become established between the mortal mind of Jesus and the indwelling spirit adjuster, the divine gift of his Father in paradise. And just such an adjuster indwells all normal beings living on Urantia since the ascension of Michael to the headship of the universe, except that Jesus's adjuster had been previously prepared for this special mission by similarity indwelling another superhuman incarnated in the likeness of mortal flesh, Macaventa Melchizedek.
Okay, so Jesus's adjuster had experience with Macaventa Melchizedek before he became the adjuster for Jesus, and it's interesting that that's the case because it not only prepared that adjuster for Jesus, but it prepared him for the eventual personalization of himself as Jesus, so that they had both. The adjuster had the experience of both Jesus and Macaventa, so makes him even a better leader. Okay. Right. But at that point, the point of this is this. At that point in time, Jesus had met the epitome of life to the point where he was ready to fuse with his adjuster. That's what a normal person would have done. Right. All right. Now I have all kinds of pictures throughout this. I'm going to skip over these and I'll go back to look at those. Okay. Rodney, would you take the next?
Deb, where's Gary when you need him?
I don't know. It's been a nice small.
Ordinarily, when a mortal of the realm attains such high levels of personality perfection, there occur those preliminary phenomena of spiritual elevation which terminate in eventual fusion of the matured soul of the mortal with its associated divine adjuster. And such a change was apparently due to take place in the personality experience of Jesus of Nazareth on that very day when he went down into the Jordan with his two brothers to be baptized by John. This ceremony was the final act of his purely human life on Urantia, and many superhuman observers expected to witness the fusion of the adjuster with its indwelt mind. But they were all destined to suffer disappointment. Something new and even greater occurred. As John laid his hands upon Jesus to baptize him, The indwelling adjuster took final leave of the perfected human soul of Joshua ben Joseph, and in a few moments, this divine entity returned from Divinington as a personalized adjuster and chief of its kind throughout the entire local universe of Nebuchadnezzar. Thus did Jesus observe his own former divine spirit descending on its return to him in personalized form. And he heard this same spirit of paradise origin now speak, saying, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." And John, with Jesus' two brothers, also heard these words. John's disciples, standing by the water's edge, did not hear these words, neither did they see the apparition of the personalized adjuster. Only the eyes of Jesus beheld the personalized adjuster.
You know, we always have this picture of a dove, descending as the spirit, right? In all the pictures and stuff, right? So there was no apparition about that. Something I want to mention here that I have not mentioned before, and I've many times have taught this, is this. Let me find it here again. This sentence right here. As John laid his hands upon Jesus to baptize him, the indwelling adjuster took final leave of the perfected human soul of Joshua ben Joseph. Did y'all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
So that means the human, we've had these discussions about what happened to the soul of Jesus before, right? And we always assume that the soul of Jesus was what fused with the adjuster. Haven't we talked about that before?
Yes.
And it looks like from this that that's not the case at all. Does it? Because
Well,
the
the
human
adjuster took leave of the human soul, but within a few moments returned
that's true.
as a
But
personalized adjuster.
but that makes you wonder if the soul of Jesus did not stay with Jesus the entire human time. And it was not allowed to go to the adjuster until after the completed bestowal.
Thus did Jesus observe his own former divine spirit descending on its return to him in personalized form.
Right. But that would be the adjuster,
Correct.
right? Am I misinterpreting that?
No, it is, but it's
Jesus
personalized.
observed his own former divine spirit.
Yeah.
So the divine spirit was the adjuster?
It sounds like the divine spirit was the adjuster, but maybe they're talking about the original spirit of Michael.
Which would
You
be
see
the
what I'm
soul?
I don't.
Huh?
I think it's the adjuster left. He saw
And
it
then returned, right? The
personalized
adjuster returned,
to
but
him.
it didn't re-indwell Jesus, did
So
it?
it just returned to him,
It just returned to
but in
him.
personalized form.
But it says here the adjuster took final leave of the perfected human soul. Do you see that?
Correct.
So the adjuster took complete leave of Jesus' soul. So the soul of Jesus remained with Jesus. Make sense? And that which the adjuster fused with was the personality record of Jesus himself.
Hmm.
Mm.
So you're saying two separate entities.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So in other words, Jesus, Joshua ben Joseph, still retained his perfect human soul.
Right. That makes sense
Just
because on the cross he says, Father, I commit my spirit to you, right?
right?
Okay, that would be his soul.
Yeah.
Make sense?
That's true. Okay.
So the soul of Jesus is not what fused with the adjuster, only the personality.
The personality of Jesus or
The
my,
personality or a duplicate of the personality of Jesus.
yeah.
Just like the reason why I'm saying it's this is this.
So he gained the personality.
It gained the personality, right? Just like we have a duplicate of our personality that is held by the archangel until we're resurrected. Remember that?
Yeah.
The archangel is there with a duplicate of your personality in case something goes wrong and your personality doesn't get back to you on the resurrection in the mansion.
So you have to.
There's a this may help you. I was just reading it. Thus did Jesus observe his own former divine spirit descending on its return to him. So the thought adjuster was replaced with his divine spirit.
Well, the thought adjuster was the divine spirit.
Well, it says in the paragraph, I just read it. Thus did uh, Jesus observe his own former divine spirit descending upon him. So maybe the spirit replaced his um,
So,
soul, earthly soul.
no, the divine spirit would be the adjuster, but it
But it
sounds
says
like
prior, but it just says this few sentences before, the indwelling gesture took final leave of
of
the
his soul.
perfected human soul of Joshua ben Joseph, and in
Yeah,
a few moments his this divine entity returned to Divington as a personalized adjuster and chief of his kind throughout the entire universe in Nebadon.
yeah.
So I wouldn't say he returned again. I would say,
Well, no, the spirit came. No, my point is this: when the divine spirit descended, returned back to him in personalized form, that was the thought adjuster.
yeah, I understand what you're saying, but you see where I question it?
Yeah, the only thing I had a question about was the human soul of Jesus. It sounds like the human soul of Jesus was retained by Jesus when the adjuster left.
Well, that would
You
make
see what?
sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would make sense because he still had 3 more years and 3.5 more years to go through, at least.
But it does
So
point out the divine spirit is another name for the adjuster.
it does. Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that up because we've talked about, what happened to the soul of Jesus before, and we always assumed that it was fused with the adjuster, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just the personality of Jesus that
And well, it
fused
must be
with it.
because
Yeah,
the soul stayed with Jesus, the
yeah.
perfected human soul.
And they say something, let me remember. They say something in the book, in the things on one of the papers in the mansion world, where they talk about the soul of Jesus is maintained in the Michael Memorial.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yeah, the first world.
The first world, first mansion world. So maybe that's what happens to the soul of Jesus after Jesus finishes his final appearance as a Urantia creature and returns to himself as Michael, his actual soul is kept in the Michael memorial until a future time.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying.
that's cool.
Okay. That's what I wanted to bring this up. These little things that are interesting. And it's hard to keep all the parts straight
Yes, it
sometimes.
is.
You know. All right, let's go on. Pam, would you take the next?
Mhm. When the returned and now exalted personalized adjuster had thus spoken, all was silence. And while the four of them tarried in the water, Jesus, looking up to the nearby adjuster, prayed, "My Father who reigns in heaven, hallowed be thy name, your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth, even as it is in heaven." When he had prayed, the heavens were opened, and the Son of Man saw the vision presented by the now personalized adjuster of himself as the Son of God, as he was before he came to earth in the likeness of mortal flesh, and as he would be when the incarnated life should be finished. This heavenly vision was seen only by Jesus.
So Jesus saw himself as Michael before he started this bestowal, right? And
See,
that,
that's enough to he was probably in awe.
yes,
The human mind,
yeah, the human
like
mind of Jesus.
holy
Yeah,
mackerel.
yeah.
So
That's
this
who I
was
was before I started this, right?
this kind of reassures him that he is Michael.
Yes, it does. Full fledged all the way, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I can walk on water.
Yeah. If he chose. We know that he really did do that though, right? We want to keep the fairy tale separate from reality. Okay, Gary, would you take the next one?
Thank you. It was a voice of the personalized adjuster that John and Jesus heard, speaking in behalf of the universal Father, for the adjuster is of and as the paradise Father. Throughout the remainder of Jesus' earth life, this personalized adjuster was associated with him in all his labors. Jesus was in constant communication with this exalted adjuster.
So the adjuster went through the rest of the stole with him. Didn't
Like almost like a companion.
Yeah, really. A
And
little
that,
me.
and go ahead.
I'm done.
Oh, and it said, I believe, that the adjuster was basically God speaking to him.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
therefore, when he says, he was in constant communication with God, is what it amounts to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. When Jesus was baptized, he repented of no misdeeds. He made no confession of sin. His was the baptism of consecration to the performance of the will of the Heavenly Father. That's what I said earlier. At his baptism, he heard the unmistakable call of his Father, the final summons to be about the Father's business. And he went away into private seclusion for 40 days to think over these manifold problems, and thus retiring for a season from active personality contact with his earthly associates. Jesus, as he was in on Urantia, was following the very procedure that obtains on the mansion worlds whenever an ascending mortal fuses with the inner presence of the universal Father. This is the same 40-day break that we get, 30 or 40 days, whatever it is, that we get in the mansion worlds after we fuse with our adjuster.
To go
Okay.
off and think about it.
We can go off and think about it and think about what pathway we want to take to get to paradise. And they
Oh,
help us
Yeah.
with this.
I thought we'd get to go to Disney World, but that's out of it,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I don't think, the way Disney World's changing, I don't think you'll find Disney World on the Mansion Worlds.
Yeah.
Unless it's Mickey Louse. Anyway, let's keep Diane.
Did you skip two?
Huh?
Did you skip two things?
Oh, 2 pages?
2 pages?
I think it is. Yeah.
I don't think so. Wait a
Go
minute.
back one.
Go back one.
Yes.
No, we read this.
We read
We
that.
did. Okay.
Yeah. And then okay, go and read this one.
My turn.
Yeah, go on and read this.
This day of baptism ended the purely human life of Jesus. The divine Son has found his Father. The universal Father has found his incarnated Son, and they speak the one to the other, with the other.
Yeah.
No,
To the other.
and
Yeah,
they speak the one to the other.
to the other. Yeah, so they communicate
Right.
completely. Okay. Rodney, would you take this one?
This is all in parentheses.
Yeah.
Jesus was almost 31 and 1.5 years old when he was baptized. So he was 30 then, or
30,
31,
yeah, he was 31,
1/2 years.
31 and a half years old. Yeah.
While Luke
Almost
says that Jesus was baptized in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, or Tiberius
right.
Caesar, which would be AD 29, since Augustus died in AD 14. It should be recalled that Tiberius was co-emperor with Augustus for 2.5 years before the death of Augustus, having had coins struck in his honor on October AD 11. The 15th year of his actual rule was therefore the very year of AD 26, that of Jesus' baptism. And this was also the year that Pontius Pilate began his rule as governor of Judea.
Well, they really try to keep it straightened out, don't they?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's important.
Yeah. All right, the 40 days. Pam, would you take this one?
Jesus had endured the great temptation of his mortal bestowal between his baptism, when he had been wet with the dews of Mount Hermon for 6 weeks. There, Mount Hermon was an unaided mortal of the realm. He had met and defeated the Urantia pretender, Calagasta, the prince of this world. The eventful day on the universe records, Jesus of Nazareth had become the planetary prince of Urantia, and this prince of Urantia, so soon to be proclaimed supreme sovereign of Nebadon, now went into 40 days of retirement to formulate the plans and determine upon the technique of proclaiming the new kingdom of God in the hearts of men.
Okay, so we need to make sure we get this all clear because people confuse this all the time. This was not Mount Hermon, okay,
Correct.
the 40 days. Mount Hermon was before the baptism. So Jesus was declared planetary prince when he defeated Caligastan and Satan as the representative of Lucifer on Mount Hermon as a son of man. Okay, so he was declared planetary prince at that point. So, in essence, on Mount Hermon, on that day on Mount Hermon, Jesus became the ruler of the planet. Does that make sense to everyone?
However, it doesn't mention Lucifer.
Yes, it does, because
Or
Satan was Lucifer's representative on Mount
Correct.
Hermon.
Okay.
Okay. Shortly after this, it wasn't that long after this that it records that Jesus saw Lucifer fall. He had been,
Correct.
or not Lucifer, Satan
Satan.
fall. He had been come to take away by the archangels to the prison worlds. However, Caligaster had not, right? Which is interesting because you would think they would have come and got them both at the same time, but they didn't. For some reason, the Ancients of Days felt Satan was a bigger threat and wanted to go ahead and take him to the prison worlds before his hearing with the Ancients of Days. And this was before Caligasta. Now, we know that Caligasta was still free on the planet during the writing of the Revelation in 1934 and 1935.
Wow.
Okay. So probably, more than likely, sometime between 1934 and 35 and 1955, they probably came and got Caligasta too, I would think. Because we know that Lucifer ended up in the prison worlds also. So, all right. And they have special angels that do that. Okay. And there's a picture of Jesus contemplating his future. Okay. Who's next? Gary? You still out there, Gary? Gary!
You're gonna I'll go the next time. I'm dealing with something right now.
Okay, I'll take this one then. After his baptism, he entered upon the 40 days of adjusting himself to the challenged relationships of the world and the universe occasioned by the personalization of his injustice. During this isolation in the Pyrenean Hills, he determined upon the policy to be pursued and the methods to be employed in the new and changed phase of Earth life, which he was about to inaugurate. So he was going to become a full-fledged preacher of the gospel, right? So he had to make his plans, and that's what the most of the rest of this paper is about. You back yet, Gary? No. Diane, would you take this one?
Jesus did not go into retirement for purpose of fasting and for the affliction of his soul. He was not an ascetic, and he came forever to destroy all such notions regarding the approach to God. His reasons for seeking this retirement were entirely different from those which had actuated Moses and Elijah, and even John the Baptist. Jesus was then wholly self-conscious concerning his relation to the universe of his making, and also to the universe of universes, supervised by the Paradise Father, his Father in heaven. He now fully recalled the bestowal charge and its instructions administered by his elder brother Emmanuel, ere he entered it upon his Urantia incarnation. He now clearly and fully comprehended all these far-flung relationships, and he desired to be away for a season of quiet meditation so that he could think out the plans and decide upon the procedures for the prosecution of his public labors in behalf of this world and for all other worlds in his local universe.
Roger, you're on mute.
Okay, this is a pivoting point for Jesus, and this is a very, very important switch over of his mindset from experiencing life as a human being to life as Michael of Lebanon in the human flesh. And why do I say this? Because I've been talking about the 7 bestowals for 12 chapters now in the other videos I've been working on for the last couple months, right? And it's important to understand the previous bestowals up to the relationship of this current bestowal, because on this time, at this time, on while he's on this 40-day rescue, he realizes his first 6 bestowals. Okay. Why is this important? Because his first 6 bestowals, he was totally aware of who he was during all 6 of them. Okay. In the 7th bestowal, up to the point of his baptism, he was not totally aware of who he was. He had inklings about that as he was growing up, but he wasn't totally sure of whom he was. Now, at this point, while he's doing this 40-day meditation, at this point, his mind is totally opened up to the point that he is Michael of Nebadon, and his bestowal is technically over. Okay. So this last few years that he stayed around to teach us was totally his decision as not only Jesus of Nazareth, but Michael of Nebadon. And he's totally aware of the charges that Emmanuel gave him before he left. Everything that went before that, he is aware of it now. So you're going to see a change in the way he teaches from this paragraph on out through the rest of the book. Okay. And if you look carefully, you'll realize he's teaching as Michael of Nebadon with the experience of Jesus of Nazareth, where before he was teaching as Jesus of Nazareth with the learned things he learned as a human being and realizing bits and pieces of his pre-existence. So the teaching changes. Okay, that's why the trip to Rome and all the teaching he did before that was so important, because he was teaching mostly as Jesus of Nazareth. But now, from here on out, he's going to be teaching as not Michael of Nebadon. So you're going to see his teaching style change tremendously, because he's going to not only be teaching directly to human beings, he's going to be teaching to all the other planets in all 10 million of them in his universe, the lessons he wants to relay as a human being, as Michael of Nebadon. Okay. Do you see the stopover or the changeover I'm trying to make?
Yes.
Here?
Yes.
And it's real important to understand that. And the real reason I realize that now is because of doing all this preparation for doing the 16 chapters of Jesus, Who, What, When, and Where. And I'm up to 12. I did 3 of them. Y'all got a video today. I did 3 of them yesterday. But it's important to know that that was Michael of Nebadon's bestowals, right? Now we're stepping into the 7th bestowal, which is Jesus of Nazareth's bestowal, right? Really, the combination of the two. Any questions about that? Did I make that muddy or?
No, that was good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on.
You want me to read? Oh, I hope my mouth
that's a nice
long
small
time.
one. No, why don't you wait to let Rodney, and now I've got back on the thing again. Let's let Rodney go ahead and read this, and we'll come back to you. All right.
Okay, while wandering about in the hills, seeking a suitable shelter, Jesus encountered his universe chief executive, Gabriel, the bright and morning star of Nebadon. Gabriel now re-established personal communication with the Creator Son of the universe. They met directly for the first time since Michael took leave of his associates on Salvington, when he went to Urantia preparatory to entering upon the Urantia bestowal. Gabriel, by direction of Emmanuel and on authority of the Uversa Ancients of Days, now laid before Jesus information indicating His bestowal experience on Urantia was practically finished, so far as concerned the earning of the perfected sovereignty of his universe and the termination of the Lucifer rebellion. The former was achieved on the day of his baptism, when the personalization of his adjuster demonstrated the perfection and completion of his bestowal in the likeness of mortal flesh. And the latter was a fact of history on that day when he came down from Mount Hermon to join the waiting lad Tiglath. Jesus was now informed upon the highest authority of the local universe and the super universe. His bestowal work was finished insofar as it affected his personal status in relation to sovereignty and rebellion. He had already had this assurance direct from paradise in the baptismal vision and in the phenomena of the personalization of his indwelling thought adjuster.
So because of this, we can determine that Jesus's mission, as far as the bestowals, was over. So everything he did after this was by his personal choice as Michael and Abaddon. Okay, the God of our universe, the creator of our universe. So everything from here on out was totally up to him. Now, everybody always comes back, well, what about the crucifixion, right? And Jesus, since he had lived a normal human life, chose to live the experience of death because it was the will of the Father in heaven, right? That he goes through the entire normal human life and experienced death also. But not only that, he still had all 7 mansion worlds that he had to experience before he relinquished himself to take up his role as Michael again, right? And why do we know that? We know that because there was a 40-day time lag between the death during which his resurrection was happening, and he appeared 19 times after his death. That 40-day lag, during that 40-day period, he experienced all 7 of the mansion worlds because we experienced the same thing. Okay. So on Pentecost, when he poured out the Spirit of truth, his Spirit, that could only be done after he relinquished his life as a Urantia being that we do, just like we do, and went back to being Michael, because he could not send out the Spirit of truth as Jesus. He had to do it as Michael. Okay? That's one of the other significances of Pentecost and the Spirit of truth. All right? So, that's where we are. Just read this one. I don't have my glasses back on. Let's go to the next one. Who's up next?
I think I am.
I think Pamela.
All right, Pam, would you take the next one?
Yeah. While he tarried on the mountain, talking with Gabriel, the constellation father of Urantia appeared to Jesus and Gabriel in person, saying, "The records are completed. The sovereignty of Michael, number 600,000
611,121.
over his universe of Nevadon rests in completion at the right hand of the Universal Father. I bring to you the bestowal release of Emmanuel, your sponsor brother for the Urantia incarnation. You are at liberty now or at any subsequent time in the manner of your own choosing to terminate your incarnation bestowal. Ascend to the right hand of the Father of your Father receive your sovereignty, and assume your well-earned unconditional rulership of all Nebadon. I also testify to the completion of the records of the super universe by authorization of the Ancients of Days, having to do with the termination of all sin rebellion in your universe and endowing you with full and unlimited authority to deal with any and all such possible upheavals in the future. Technically, your work on Urantia and in the flesh of the mortal creature is finished. Of course, from now on, he is a matter of your
Your course.
own. Sorry,
Choosing.
Your course.
Yeah, your course from now on is a matter of your own choosing.
Your course from now on
Yeah.
is a matter of your own choosing. Thank you.
Yes. So as of right now, everything is done as far as the universe is concerned. The Lucifer rebellion is technically ended, right? So the only thing left to do is what? Adjudication of the rebels. That's it. And that's what's still going on today. Okay, so Jesus was technically done with everything. So everything that happened after this was his choice and of his own choosing. And that's very important that we know that, because all the miracles and everything he does for him here on out is his choice with the will of the universal Father, because throughout the rest of his life, he did absolutely nothing that was outside the will of the universal Father, because he stuck to the plan of the bestowal all the way through.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So he did nothing outside the will of the Father. All right, Gary, would you take the next one?
When the Most High Father of Edentia had taken leave, Jesus held long converse with Gabriel regarding the welfare of the universe and sending greetings to Emmanuel. Proffered his assurance that in the work in which he was about to undertake on Urantia, dang, he would be ever mindful of the counsel he had received in connection with the predisposal bestowal predisposal charge administered on Salvington.
Okay, and we know that that charge is all of paper 120, right? So if you've not got any idea what he's talking about, go back to paper 120 and read through that, because that was Emmanuel's charge to Jesus, or to Michael, before his bestowal, right? And we're going to find out a little bit that some of the things he said to do during that charge, he went back and took care of even in his own home by destroying all the writings he had done and all that stuff. And that's why I still say that the Shroud of Turin is not the face of Jesus, okay?
Yeah.
Because Jesus's death cloths were wadded up and thrown over a cliff, what the Midwayers did, okay? So, you can if it makes you more spiritual to believe that, go at it. That's fine. But according to the Urantia Book, nothing was left of Jesus on the planet. Nothing. Okay, because they knew what would happen is exactly what happened. They start to worship it. Okay. All right. Throughout all these 40 days of isolations, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, were engaged in searching for Jesus. Many times they were not far from his abiding place, but never did they find him. Okay, plan for public works. Here.
4. Plans for public work. Day by day, up in the hills, Jesus formulated the plans for the remainder of his Urantia bestowal. He first decided not to teach contemporarily. I can't. Oh,
Contemporaneously.
thank you, with John. He planned to remain in comparative retirement until the work of John achieved its
Achieved.
purpose, hmm? Achieved its purpose, or until John was suddenly stopped by imprisonment. Jesus well knew that John's fearless and tactless preaching would presently arouse the fears and enmity of the civil rulers. In view of John's precarious situation, Jesus began definitely to plan his program of public labors in behalf of his people and the world, in behalf of every inhabited world throughout his vast universe. Michael's mortal bestowal was on Urantia, but for all the worlds of Nebadon.
So he knew his message was for all the worlds of Nebadon, and John's message was just for what?
The Jews.
Urantia, right?
The Jews.
The Jews, really. Not really all people, but just the Jews. And it's obvious the tone and what John was trying to get through to people was totally different than what Jesus started teaching, wasn't it? And so Jesus decided not to try to teach at the same time John was, because of the total difference of the message they both had, right? And they knew they weren't comparable to each other. So
It'd be conflict of interest.
Pardon me?
It would be conflict of interest.
It really would be conflict of interest, because John's message was about the wrath of God and people being sinful and all that, where Jesus' message was about the forgiveness and the mercy and the love of God and the brotherhood of man, wasn't it? So totally different message, totally different tone. So he chose not to do anything until John's was either imprisoned or was finished with his work, which was coming really soon after that. All right, so he went back to work. All right, Rodney, would you take this one?
Yes. The first thing Jesus did, after thinking through the general plan of coordinating his program with John's movement, was to review in his mind the instructions of Emmanuel. Carefully, he thought over the advice given him concerning his methods of labor, and that he was to leave no permanent writing on the planet. Never again did Jesus write on anything except sand. On his next visit to Nazareth, much to the sorrow of his brother Joseph, Jesus destroyed all of his writing that was preserved on the boards about the carpenter shop, and which hung upon the walls of the old home. And Jesus pondered well over Emmanuel's advice pertaining to his economic, social, and political attitude toward the world as he should find it.
That's why he never took any action on any economical, social, or political things that was going on in the world, because he could not take sides with anyone, right? So he stayed away from those things completely. Pam, would you take the next one, please?
Jesus did not fast during this 40 days isolation. The longest period he went without food was his first 2 days in the hills, when he was so engrossed with his thinking that he forgot all about eating. But on the third day he went in search of food. Neither was he tempted during this time by any evil spirits or rebel personalities of station on this world or from any other world.
So there was no great temptation during this time, was there? Right.
Correct.
All right, Gary, would you take the next
I'm beginning to feel normal now.
one?
These 40 days were the occasion of the final conference between the human and the divine minds, or rather, the first real functioning of these two minds as now made one. The results of this momentous season of meditation demonstrated conclusively that the divine mind has triumphantly and spiritually dominated the human intellect. And I say that right? Intellect? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
The mind of man has become the mind of God. Excuse me, from this time on. And through the selfhood of the mind of man is ever present, always does this spiritualized human mind say, not my will, but your will, yours be done.
Talking about the Father in heaven, right?
Mhm.
Always open to giving leeway to the Father of heaven. All right. The transaction of this eventful time were not the fanatic visions of a starved and weakened mind. Rather, neither were they the confused and puerile symbolisms that afterward gained record as the temptations of Jesus in the wilderness. This was not the case, right? Rather than this, a season for thinking over the whole eventful and varied career of the Urantia bestowal, and for the careful laying of those plans for further ministry which would best serve the world while also contributing something to the betterment of the all other rebellion isolated spheres. Jesus thought over the whole span of human life on Urantia from the days of Adam and on Infanta down through Adam's default and on the ministry of the Melchizedek of Salem. So he basically went through the entire timeline in memory of what happened before.
Mm.
And we're down to 6:56, so I think we better stop right here. Okay. And let me switch shares and we'll have a prayer of acceptance. Okay, here we go. I think I'll do the prayer of acceptance tonight. Prayer of acceptance. I believe that God is my paradise Father. Let me say something before I read this completely through. When we put this together, we did it with the thought of having a prayer that people can gain acceptance to the teachings of what we believe in the Urantia book. We did not try to set up any kind of permanent system of belief or anything like that. We're not trying to be the Catholic Church, you know. Saints. I wanted to make sure that was clear before I read this. This
You're
is
trying
our
to
prayer,
say,
our way of bringing people to what we believe and a way to express that belief if people need a way to put it into words. And that's what this is. Okay. Prayer of acceptance. I believe that God is my paradise Father and that only by faith am I saved. No sacrifice is necessary. By the same faith, I became a child of God and know that all men and women are my brothers and sisters. We know the Son of God, the sovereign of our universe of Nebadon, is Christ Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. By allowing the will of God to become my will, I will someday stand in the presence of the paradise Father. In the name of Christ Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen.
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 And thanks everybody for coming to see us, listening to our ranting and raving. I hope you gained something from this.
That's
And
good.
yeah,
Good
I
read.
hope you'll come back and see us Thursday and we'll keep working on this, right?
Thank you. See
Thanks
you
everybody
Thursday.
for
Yeah.
coming, participating, and all that good stuff. And we will see y'all Thursday. Okay.
All right. Love
Good
you
night,
guys.
everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
You're welcome.